Hi, Smart News. Happy Monday. We have a few big stories to review today, starting with Afghanistan and then talking a little bit about the COVID-19 pandemic. I have my assistant producer here with me, appropriately drawing on a Zappos return return receipt. Like I'm sure so many of you have along in your house too, right? A lot of return. Okay, maybe it's just me. So I wanted to talk to you about really these two big stories, Afghanistan and the COVID-19 pandemic. And I was thinking about this last night, how often the news is just dominated by threats. You know, what is the latest threat, and to frighten you often, right? Like these are the biggest threats facing your family. Here's my little girl just drawing with me right now. But I think what's really important about these two stories is just to provide really basic information about what you should know about these two really big topics, because they are significant and we can put them in the category as threats. And we should have the best information available on both of these really big stories. So instead of starting with the pandemic, where so many people are going to start today, I want to talk to you a little bit about what's happening in Afghanistan. As you know, Afghanistan is the site of America's longest war. The war is being winded down. We expect to be mostly out of the country by the end of August, but there's a lot of activity there, and there's been a lot of activity over the last several years, but specifically over the last several months when it comes to the Taliban and the Taliban making territorial gains in Afghanistan. The Taliban already control the most territory now than they have at any point in the war, but they're actually encroaching more on provincial capitals. So these are really strategic, important cities, and one of those cities is Kandahar. I'm going to go ahead and pull up a map if I can. I don't know if it's going to allow me today. So let me just show you the map of Afghanistan. So you can see just on the border of Pakistan here, Kandahar is a really important city. It's a really big city, strategically important for the U.S. military, but also now for the Afghanistan military as well. And over the last several weeks, there's been concerns about how close the Taliban is getting to getting full control of that city. Because of that, there's been a series of airstrikes by the U.S. government. So even though we're pulling out, we've increased our airstrikes in the recent last few days. And there's been a question about whether or not these airstrikes will continue even after August 31st. And the general that's in charge of CENTCOM, which is Central Command, said just late on Sunday night, said that he's making no promises about when to end these airstrikes. So I think it's really important that you know that this is happening. At the same time, one of the biggest stories over the last week, we talked about this last week, is that the Biden administration wants to close Guantanamo Bay. And just last week, we released somebody from Guantanamo Bay that was determined to be too dangerous to release at one time, that worked closely with Osama bin Laden going back to the 1990s. That was determined different now, and this person was released to Morocco last week. And so why does this all matter? Why do we even care about Afghanistan? Are these multiple things happening at the same time? The Taliban gaining ground, releasing detainees from Guantanamo. Remember, a fair amount, about 30% of detainees from Guantanamo either have been confirmed to go back to terrorism or suspected to go back to terrorism. The reason why this all matters is because we know that Afghanistan was used as a safe haven for al-Qaeda. There have been those throughout the years that believe the Taliban and al-Qaeda actually are not separate entities, but working very closely together. And there's a concern about whether or not Afghanistan again dissolves into chaos. You have the Taliban in control, more safe haven for terrorists, and that poses a national security threat for us here at home. Here, I just want to show you this map again. So here, even on this map, Kandahar is right here, is Afghanistan. You can see Iran and Pakistan, so strategically important part of the world. Before Secretary Pompeo left office during the Trump administration, he said Iran is the new Afghanistan. So we just really have to pay attention to what's happening here. And I'm not seeing it necessarily get the most attention right now in a lot of the news that I'm seeing. I think it's a really big story. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the COVID-19 pandemic. You're hearing a lot about the variant, right? The Delta variant. Here's a couple things I think you should know. No matter where you stand on the vaccine versus natural immunity debate. And a lot of the news, again, is just focused on who's gotten vaccinated and who hasn't. So one of the most important things to know right now about what's happening with COVID-19 in America is that you're seeing infections go up in all 50 states. So it's not just one area. We're seeing infections increase. When it comes to hospitalizations, we're seeing that amongst the unvaccinated. However, as you know, because we've reported this, The CDC several months ago said that they're not going to be tracking breakthrough infections. So if you've gotten vaccinated and then you got a COVID-19 infection, the CDC was not aggressively tracking those individuals. They're tracking those that have been hospitalized. And that's why they can say amongst the hospitalized, it's those that have not been vaccinated. So one of my questions to the CDC today, and I'm going to write them as soon as I'm done with this video, is that still the current policy? And the reason why I'm asking that is because of information that's come out of Israel. So out of Israel, we look at Israel because it has the majority of adults that have been vaccinated with the Pfizer vaccine. It's a small country, so it's almost like its own little case study. And new information from Israel shows that amongst the vaccinated population, or when they're looking at the efficacy of the Pfizer vaccine against the Delta variant, it's about 40% effective against symptomatic infections. Now, that's very different than new data out of the UK that says that the vaccines are about 88% effective against symptomatic infections. So we're seeing a lot. That's the second point you should know. Not only are infections going up all 50 states, but we're also getting a variety of different data when it comes to the vaccines. And there's not one conclusive data point because you're seeing this different data, and it could be different for any number of reasons. So we're going to need to take a couple weeks to let it shake out. U.S. health officials will continue to tell you that they want everybody to be vaccinated, and they're continuing that push. That is the position by the U.S. government, and that's important to know too. So let me show you this just for context, because context is important. I pulled this data just from last night. This shows the 7-day moving average in America of COVID-19 cases. And so there's where we were last year at this time, and this is where we are now. So you can see we had this huge spike when every single day we were seeing, more than 200,000 people diagnosed with COVID-19 infections right around, the beginning of this year. And so last year at this time, we were in a 7-day moving average. This is a more stable data point to look at than charting it every day. We were at about 60,000 infections over this 7-day moving average. Now we're around 40,000. So it is important to note that if you look at the graph, look at where we were a couple weeks ago, it is an increase, and you can see where it kind of marked last year at the same time. So you can see we're starting to get some data that we're going to be able to chart over a year time to see, hey, like what's going on throughout the year. And so while it's important to know, yes, infections are going up. Yes, this is important. This is the context over the last year period, just so that we understand what's taking place. We don't want anyone to get sick. We don't want anyone to be hospitalized. We don't want anyone to lose their life, right? We want all of us to be healthy and happy. That's what I want for you. So I just want you to have that context though. And I'm going to be reaching out to the CDC about that. Just so maybe she's not that impressed by the news report. Why is the Delta variant so much more contagious? Why is there so much more concern about it? A new study out of China showed that compared to the first evolution of the virus that causes COVID-19, the Delta variant, you carry about 1,000 more, I don't want to call it a viral load because that's not correct, presence of the virus in your respiratory tract. About 1,000, it's about 1,000 more, maybe I should call it a viral load. You have about 1,000 times more of the virus in your nose compared to previous virus. That's why they believe it's that much more contagious. And that's why there's also a question about whether or not vaccinated people can spread this new variant. So, okay, those are a couple things I think you should know. Liberty, what do you think about that report? Good? She kind of gave me like yeah, it's okay, Mom. She did a great job. You're super quiet. All right. I got my work cut out for me today. Let me know what stories you'd like me to check out and our team to check out. One of the things I'm going to be looking into is there's also more of a push for a COVID-19 pill. Think about Tamiflu for the flu. And also think about timing for this. One of the reasons why there's a concern for a rise in infections is that we go into flu season in the fall. You saw that big spike in January, right? We had almost no flu present in America at that time. We did a report on that as well. You can check that out on our website. And so the timing of this rise in infections is also a concern, bringing up a lot of question about, all sorts of things. All right, guys, have a great start to your week. Let me know what you'd like to hear more about, and we look forward to seeing you here on social media and all these stories and more on smarternews.com. All right, have a great day, guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.